Making a good horror movie is an art, regardless of what mainstream cinema would have you believe. The filmmaker has to employ all sorts of tricks and strategies to get you as on edge as possible, and it takes just as much skill as any other genre, sometimes maybe more. So let's take a look at some of the methods they use. I'm Amy from What Culture, and here are 10 tricks that horror movies use to scare you. 10. Dramatic irony. It's a classic literary device and also one of the most important ways to build tension, involving giving your audience a bit of information to figure out what's going to happen next, but letting them watch as your characters stumble unknowingly into danger. One of the very best examples of this being used in horror is the classic pantomime He's Behind You, in which our characters know nothing of the awful fate approaching them from the background. Hush is a film that works incredibly by using this in its opening, making the audience all too aware that our protagonist is being targeted by a masked man who's just killed her friend, but then making us wait ages before she becomes any wiser to it. Any film that uses the audience's own awareness of the film's genre and contrasts it against the character's blasé approach to things is employing this tactic. Think of Terrifier, where the girl takes the selfie with Art the Clown, or maybe The Evil Dead 2, where they drive into the woods thinking they're just going on a nice holiday. We know they're going straight into danger, but God knows they don't. 9. Looking straight down the camera. It's a trick that essentially involves knocking the fourth wall down to invite your audience into the film with you. We all know it, and we've all seen it done incredibly badly. Do it well though, and having a character look down the barrel straight into the audience's eyes can have a truly chilling effect. If it's a monster that gives you the old googly eyes, then you get the benefit of feeling seen, like you've been spotted by the baddie and could be next for the chopping block. Alternatively, you can be made to feel involved in the events of the movie in a sort of complicit way, as if you're somehow responsible for what's happening, but you still can't control it, making you feel more invested in the outcome. Films like Funny Games or Memories of a Murder do this perfectly. Whilst the former makes you a neutral, unhelping party in the torture and murder of a family, the latter begs you to help conclude events and let the narrative bleed over into real life. Horror movies are meant to exemplify everything we fear the most, so obviously being invited to be sucked into them is going to generate more fear. 8. The unexpected. The trope-heavy nature of many horrors means we can fall into a very boring pattern. This is why when a film comes along that genuinely shocks us, it can renew the sense of fear that's been dulled by all the blunt horror plots that came before. It's an unfortunate side effect of horror's propensity for paying homage, which half the time just means copying, that many of the first films to do something revolutionary have since lost their sting. But we do have to give them some credit for first introducing a truly unexpected twist, even if it has since been bastardized. We've had Psycho and Scream kill our supposedly leading ladies. We've had Carnival of Souls introduce the now infamous "and they were dead all along" trope. All sorts of game-changing shocks that left audiences wondering what could possibly happen next. It's safe to say that if you can completely pull the rug out from underneath your audience, then they're placed on unfamiliar ground, and that breeds uncertainty and unease. 7. Corrupting the everyday. Home invasion films are one of horror's most popular subgenres, allowing us to gawk at the terror of having your safe space destroyed, all from the comfort of our own safe, cozy couches. It's the same appeal to the well-known that makes office or hospital-based horrors so unnerving. They're taking a space that's meant to be safe, comforting, or helpful, and turning it into something awful. For some reason, we love to subject ourselves to the fear of having our own homes invaded or haunted, our own families tormented. We willingly watch murders on an operating table, or shady organisations taking over workplaces, just to then visit the GP and get on the bus to go to work. We're so programmed to associate our frequented spaces with a sense of normality and eventless boredom that telling our brains that they may be just as dangerous as any abandoned asylum or clown-filled carnival is bound to be upsetting. We would be absolutely terrified if any of this were to happen to us in real life, and so watching it on screen appeals to all of our deepest fears of safety being ripped away. In life, we convince ourselves that we're staying safe by avoiding scary or dangerous places, but these movies can convince us that no matter where we are, danger can find us. 6. Humanoid creatures. Zombies, vampires, hilltop cannibals, I swear they all have nothing when compared to that weird humanoid kid from Vivarium. I could fight 50 of those half-brained freaks from Shaun of the Dead, but you put that one kid in front of me, I'm fucking running. The fundamental idea of that movie did not require the kid to look human at all. The process it compares itself to, in which a cuckoo chick slowly takes over a nest of other birds and is raised by its unknowing surrogate parents, literally lends itself to the implanted child being different in appearance. So why Why make him look like a little boy then? Well, because the filmmakers know that giving us a creature with humanoid features but a discordant voice and behaviour is far more unnerving. It plants our villain right in the uncanny valley, and that is not a ravine you want to find yourself in. Plenty of different aspects of film cash in on the human but not quite idea, ranging from your own reflection becoming something you don't quite recognise, right through to evil dolls coming to life. The thing that makes Chucky or Annabelle so creepy isn't just that they're meant to be inanimate objects, but because they're dangerously close to being human. Take the humanoid puppets in Puppet Master. If you tried to remake that film with the decidedly non-human Sesame Street puppets, for example, it would be nowhere near as scary. Although, it probably would be really funny to watch. 5. Unstoppability. First of all, yes, that is a word, and I won't hear otherwise. It also happens to be the perfect word for describing why infamous villains like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees are so terrifying to so many people. It's because there's very little, if anything, you can do to actually stop them for good. The cynic in me says that the main factor in the invincibility of these characters is that the studio just wants to make more movies. It's kind of a capitalist plot armor. However, when it plays out on screen as an absolute beast of a bloke unrelentingly pursuing a screaming victim, it's undeniably scary. With these hulking, bulletproof antagonists, we're led to suspect that they will hunt their targets forever. There's no respite, no escape. I mean, just ask Laurie Strode. This kind of certainty that they will reappear adds to a sense of dread in any movie they appear in that we know without a doubt that at no point can we begin to feel safe. Often a horror movie will end with our protagonists defeating the bad guy, but we have to give some extra credit to those who just cannot be defeated, because they give us the bleakest, most enduring endings of all. 4. Showing you as little as possible. We all suffer from the fear of the unknown. It's that anxiety-inducing realization that there's so much we don't understand and things that we can never predict. By sparingly showing us what we're meant to be afraid of, filmmakers give us all the wiggle room in the world to build it up in our own heads and make everything more scary. Where films like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark have failed is that they show the monsters in full detail for extended periods of time. There's only so long that you can look at something that's meant to be scary dead on before your body just calms itself down. It's classic conditioning. Plus, there's no way you can look at this guy for more than 5 seconds and not start laughing, because he does look like he's made out of mashed potato. Extra bonus giggles when you see that he kills people by hugging them to death. Monster movies especially have to make note of this. Be a Jaws. Don't be a mashed potato man. 3. Recurring sound motifs. A well-used motif is something that can push a movie over the edge of being okay to being actually quite good, really. If you do it right, people can recognise your film without any further detail than just hearing that signature noise. Take, for example, Charlie's click in Hereditary. Before I watched the movie, when I asked friends what they thought about it, they'd always punctuate it with that horrible mouth pop. I thought this was just weird, and in retrospect it still is a bit, but it did make much more sense when I actually watched the movie. Repeating a sound that you associate with a certain character or event helps build the dread an audience feels. It plays into the idea of subliminal messaging in that sometimes it's such a subtle tick that it's barely noticeable unless you're listening for it. The infamous Ju-on death rattle, the knock 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 of the Babadook. These are all sounds associated with a moment of terror and a source of danger, and so when they're used strategically, they really get our heart racing with no spooky visuals necessary. 2. Unnatural movements. We as humans are programmed to fear things that are unlike us in nature or appearance. It's a leftover evolutionary fear that used to protect us from things like snakes or big cats in the wild. Part of this fear includes the way things move, which means that even if a monster looks like a human, it'll still strike fear in our heart if it moves in the wrong way. A fantastic famous example of this is the crawling down the stairs clip from the genre favourite The Exorcist. People all over the world still cringe as they watch Regan descend the staircase in a crab walk. The clip still drums up feelings of unease and disgust even decades after it was first released. As I mentioned before, a monster doesn't have to be gory or alien looking, it just has to be slightly removed from humanity to the point that it's uncanny. Of course, it does help if it looks a bit gross, but taking Gabriel from the recent Wan flick Malignant for example, his face is all sorts of messed up, but the creepiest thing about him by far is still how his joints appear to move in the opposite way than they should. 1. Dead space. In this particular context, we're not talking about the empty cosmos. We're talking about the negative space that can be used in horror to suggest that there's something more that you're not seeing. It tricks the brain into thinking that it must see something in the empty zones of a frame, and when it can't, it begins to send alarm signals. We see this kind of fear-inducing emptiness in everything from It Follows and Lights Out to older offerings like The Blair Witch Project and Ring. You desperately search the part of the frame that's missing a subject, looking for something to focus on, and in turn convincing yourself that something's lurking sitting there and you're vulnerable because you can't see it. In my mind, there is no recent horror that does this better than 2020's The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man does this in such a remarkable way because due to the nature of its plot, you already suspect that Adrian's there before it shows you any dead space. In Cecilia's most nerve-wracking, stressful moments, and haunting any downtime she may have had, the frame lingers just a little too long and a little too wide. You know he's there, you know he is, you just can't see him, and that, undeniably, is absolutely horrifying. And with that, we've reached the end of this list of 10 tricks horror movies use to scare you. If you have any more that you think work really well, then let us know in the comments down below. And remember to check out whatculture.com for more lists and articles like this every single day. As always, I've been Amy from What Culture, and I'll catch you next time.